The video game industry, like a lot of other industries, can be a fragile and finicky one. Companies come and go on a regular basis, even staple companies, ones that looked as though they'd be around forever. CD Projekt Red was close to being one of those companies in their history. I don't think most know just how close the developer was to closing up shop after the release of the first Witcher game, with the second release coming within days of being cancelled and never reaching our monitors. And let's be honest, it would have been tragic to never see the evolution of this company and get to not only play great games that they have brought to us, but also experience the games still yet to come, which I for one am eagerly awaiting to get my hands on Cyberpunk 2077. And I truly hope that it lives up to all the hype that it's getting, which I don't really believe it's possible, but I hope to be wrong. And even if it doesn't, chances are it'll still be one of the best games to come out this year. But the main topic that we're going to be talking about is what if CD Projekt Red decided to do what a lot of these other companies are doing? Go back and remake some of their older titles, specifically The Witcher 1 and 2. Alright, a quick history of CD Projekt Red and thinking about how close to not producing any of this they were. It goes back to the economic crisis of 2009, which hit every industry hard, and the video game industry was no exception. But the economic situation wasn't the only issue. It was also coupled with the failed release of the console version of the original Witcher story, going by the title of The Witcher: Rise of the White Wolf. Lacking the experience and 5 months working on the port of this game, they ran out of time and money. This was a project they were working on with another company by the name of Widescreen Games, which after 2013 ceased its operations. Both these major issues, as well as a couple other minor ones, sent CD Projekt Red close to shuttering their windows, which obviously would have killed every future project and further potential that they had. But luckily, 3 months into the worst of their trials, the company was placed on the Warsaw Stock Exchange, where investors were ready to get their piece of the pie and get the company out of their difficult position. After this, the short of it is the company went on to start building not only The Witcher 2, Assassin of Kings, but also a whole new engine for the future project, The Witcher 3, both of these being tackled at the same time. The new engine was going to be necessary if they wanted to bring the Witcher series to console, and eventually allowing it to be available on multiple platforms. In fact, there's not a single platform The Witcher 3 is not on that I can think of. Now, it's no surprise that CD Projekt Red is considered the golden child of the industry, the white knight of video games, holding true to their principal values of putting the experience of the consumer above immediate profits. It's not just the creation of amazing games that gets CD Projekt Red its praise, it's their entire business model, where too many companies today release games lacking in creativity and that are riddled with microtransactions, some of which could arguably be considered predatory. CD Projekt Red has given expansions the size of full-blown video games for free with the release of the Complete Edition, where other companies would have never stopped milking the consumer for even an extra minute of content. It's a simple formula. This love for the people that play their games is rewarded in kind with love from the community. But even with the difficult and demanding production process and the trials they face coming into their own, the end results of high standards and quality are definitely hard to argue against. But regarding the Witcher franchise, and more specifically The Witcher 3, this game stands among the top of the top for RPG games of this decade, if not being the number one on the list, competing with other landmark games such as Skyrim, Fallout, Mass Effect, and the Dark Souls series. While the quality of a game can largely be subjective, and obviously each game's appeal varies from player to player, but there are objective ways to view the quality and success of a video game. Now, I will not go into the many ways that games can be objectively compared to one another, but one simple comparison and standard of success is in its total sales. So let's look at some and see where the Witcher series lands. The series from CD Projekt Red has just recently hit 50 million copies sold as of the 28th of last month, which beats out games like Fallout at 38 million, World of Warcraft at 33 million, and Mass Effect at 16.5 million. While it still comes under games like Skyrim, which is sitting at 52 million, but it should also be said that Skyrim's sales include all of their re-releases, which, from everything I can find, they have had 9 releases of their 5th installment of the Elder Scrolls series. Now, hearing about The Witcher's financial success is most likely not surprising to anyone in the gaming industry, especially when they followed up the initial release of The Wild Hunt with what is now considered the gold standard of DLC, that being the Hearts of Stone, and then raising the bar further with the Blood and Wine expansion. The original Witcher game released in October of 2007, beginning as the first original and self-produced video game release from CD Projekt Red, which would start them down the path to not only being one of the most quality-driven development companies in the industry, but also one of the developers that is still held in high regard within the community, continually putting the consumer first. The game was based on the novels from the Polish writer Andrzej Sapkowski, who has written multiple novels, wonderfully penning the origins of Geralt of Rivia and launching this franchise. The series has even recently been adapted to the home screen, with the premiere of the Witcher Netflix series, which although has seen some mixed reviews as far as critics are concerned, it has been very well received by the average viewer. Critic reviews hardly matter when put up against over 76 million households viewing the show within the first 4 weeks, making it Netflix's biggest opening season for any show they have released to date. The huge interest in Sapkowski's character is still leaving people wanting more, with multiple forms of media pushing the story of Geralt forward and gaining millions more fans than when the original game came out. With this new fan base, the commonly talked about idea that remaking the first 2 games for today's larger audience might be a good idea. Now, if you go off some of the Reddit threads and do a little digging around frequently asked question pages, it's not hard to find out that there's a huge base of gamers that would love to see the original 2 games come back out with updated graphics and some quality of life changes. The original game had issues with gameplay mechanics, a less than stellar map design, and an uncommon interpretation of combat style that you don't see in many games. This was definitely the first go for CD Projekt Red, and it shows. They had so much talent and vision, but due to technology, especially using DirectX 9 right when it launched, and you can tell that they made mistakes, that they now having more senior developers might not have made at the time. The company growth and success of executing their vision can definitely be seen when comparing The Wild Hunt to the original Witcher. When The Wild Hunt first came out, many of us knew it was a great game. Playing the game just felt right. Everything flowed in and out of not only interesting and engaging, but also grounded story. But for me, and I think it's fair to assume others too, it took time to truly see what a masterpiece the game really was. And it grew and grew on me, and even today, after coming back to the game 5 years later, it still continues to surprise me with how all the little details were so precisely interwoven. The level of attention to detail and care put into this project pleasantly gained CD Projekt Red a new and large fan base. Most of the fan base for The Witcher 3 started on The Witcher 3, meaning that the 3rd game of the series was most people's exposure to Geralt of Rivia. And having the game be as amazing as it was, people naturally wanted more. And unfortunately, going back to the original 2 can be a little difficult and might be a shock to see where the game came from. And it's terribly disappointing that this may be enough of an issue to keep some people away from experiencing Geralt's past adventures. Personally, graphics have never been a deterrent for me. I'll always put quality of story and interesting and inventive gameplay mechanics at the top of my list. That being said, when all come together, I definitely still love seeing a game run beautifully with ultra graphics cranked up. Many of my top 10 greatest games would absolutely fall into the category of outdated graphics. Games like Baldur's Gate and KOTOR, just as a few examples. For me, nothing beats a gripping story that drags you into the world that the developers have created. While great graphics can absolutely enhance this aspect, it is by no means the defining characteristic of a great game. But honestly, if you can get past the clunkiness of DirectX 9, then please do yourself a favor and play the original games. You can get them bundled on the PC for less than $5. They do not require a super powerful rig to play them, given when they were released. So seriously, trade the $5 for upwards worth of 90 hours of gameplay, and even longer if you're the completionist type. $5 to see what experience made Geralt into the character from the games to what he is now. But if you can't get past the less than top tier graphics and awkward combat compared to the last entry, then at a minimum, check out the Witcher 1 program mod from the creator ERXV. Although it does look pretty good to have the prologue recreated with the graphics of The Witcher 3. Let's be honest though, if CD Projekt Red did decide to remake the original 1 and 2, it would look even better than this, especially with the upcoming new console cycle coming down the pipeline. Reliving these 2 fantastic stories with the addition of buttery smooth graphics and possibly no loading times, among other improvements to speak of, would be amazing. My opinion on remakes is usually fairly pessimistic, and will be the topic of a larger video later. I do not usually get excited about companies rehashing older games, especially games that don't need to be remade and are already great. Take the Resident Evil games for example. I've played both the recent remakes, that being Resident Evil 2 and 3. I loved both and thought that they were well executed. That being said, there have been rumors about remaking of Resident Evil 4, and this is where I feel that the game still aged very well, and I would hate to see it not released with the care that it deserves. Essentially, don't fix it if it's not broke. Games like the 3D version of The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, or the 2018 release of Secret of Mana. Hell, even Dark Souls Remastered is a game I could have went without. Now, I know I have high standards when it comes to this area, and to be honest, they may be too high. But if this was to be done well, and I mean truly well, I would be ecstatic. And really, there are not many other companies besides CD Projekt Red that I have the confidence in to recreate these iconic games with the amount of care and passion as would be required to do it successfully. Unfortunately, the only comment on taking on a project from the developers comes from a tweet from the community lead, Marcin Momot, stating that he thinks it's a great idea, but sadly he doesn't believe it will ever happen. But statements are made all the time. Who knows what time will bring when it comes to the future and past of the Witcher franchise. Companies have changed their mind in the past, taking Square Enix for example, and their recent remake of Final Fantasy VII, which has been met by complicated reception. Many thinking that the masterpiece of a game should never have been touched, which I am sure that even CD Projekt Red would end up getting some mixed feedback from their customer base if they ever decided to take on this endeavor. Let me know if any of you would like to see these series-defining games redone with a shiny new coat of paint, or if you're on the side of leave it alone and not reinterpreting a game that has already made such an impact in the video game world. From this point in, the video will be a channel update, so if you're not interested, then thank you for watching this video, and I truly appreciate it. There are buttons at the bottom of the video, feel free to hit a few, and thanks again. For those of you still with me, I finally got the video editing software purchased to where I can now remove the watermark. Embarrassing, but yeah, it's done. I am still saving up for an actual capture card to start taking higher quality footage to go along with the commentary. I would like to personally thank any of you that have liked and subscribed to my content. If any of you would like to reach out to me for any reason, feel free. Leave me a comment or just message me on Twitter, which I've linked in the description. Thank you all again.